Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and people. We are live. Well, not live. We're doing a recording, and I like to go live, but we're doing another episode of Positive Philter. I'm joined by a special guest. You may have known or recognized this guest. He's been, I think, 2 times now, right? You about to be a 3-timer of the podcast, so you about to be a reoccurring guest. But I'm joined by the Mr. Career himself, Junior Delgado. Before we get in this episode, Junior, for those that don't listen to my podcast, which I don't know what you're doing, you should. Give the listeners a little explanation or background of who you are.
So happy to be here, Phil. Thank you for having me back. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you and talk all things career, life, whatever it might be. Junior Delgado, Director of the Career Center at Westfield State University in Western Massachusetts, 1 hour and a half west of Boston, Mass. So just to give you some perspective, I have been the director at Westfield State now for about, I'm going to say close to 12 years, but I have been at Westfield State for close to 22 years. So it's been a while that I've been there. The passion in life is working with students, seeing our students succeed. Student success is at the root of everything that I do. At the reason that I am in this career field is seeing our students succeed, but seeing all students succeed, and that's the most important thing. So happy to be here tonight, ready to talk about whatever you throw at me, and let's get it.
Well, we vibing, and we always vibe on that student-centered, what's it called? Is it student-centered focus, student-centric? But I think we want to pull that back and maybe say us-centric, egocentric. and we do a lot of, I think, it's funny. I always thought about this term, right? Like, who teaches the teacher? You know what I'm saying? Who coaches the coach? And then I was about to say now, for this episode, who gives the career advice to the career counselor, right? And so before we went into the show, I was like, wow, like we're both very heavily involved in professional development, Eastern ACE, which is an association. I think we're both very involved in growing as people and, making sure that we're tight before we give advice. And I was like, what better to talk about than, what we see and we learn, and then how before we make it applicable to our students, how do we apply it to ourselves? So I think the central focus is maybe we're going to talk about NACE Competencies. So before we go in there, can you give an explanation? I mean, you got the paper right there. What is the NACE Competencies?
Absolutely. So for those folks that don't know about NACE, so it's the National Association of Colleges and Employers, and it's the governing body that really does govern the career field. And so they have come up with 8 career competencies that they have used as a guide for colleges and universities, and they are career and self-development, communication, critical thinking, leadership, professionalism, teamwork, technology, and their newest one, which I'm most excited about, equity and inclusion.
Yeah.
So those are the competencies.
So I think maybe for structure, maybe what we could do is we can go through each one of them and just maybe share a story of applicable, like maybe what we do and how we talk to students about it, but then like maybe what we need to do for ourselves. Because I think, as I said earlier, man, it's like, man, how are you going to teach someone how to play basketball? You don't need to be a good basketball player, but at least you know how to shoot. You know what I'm saying? Like I mean, but we can also go there and say that a lot of coaches look like the most unathletic people ever. But it's neither here nor there. That's not the point. The point is, before we teach others or talk about things that we think are competencies, are we competent ourselves? So what's the first one we got on there?
So we've got career and self-development.
And how do they explain that? Did they put the little definition on the back of that paper? No.
They do. They're very long, but I can.
Okay, what's the? Yeah, don't have to read the whole thing. Like just what's like the first? What's the sentence?
So I think the true basis, if I can summarize it, is really career and self-development is about proactively developing oneself and one's career through continual personal and professional learning. And so I think with all of that, it's all the things that we embody as a profession and the things that we do when it comes to building relationships and see it. And I think I share this a lot of times when I speak, that I don't always use the term networking with our students because, again, it just doesn't resonate. It can be intimidating. It can be anxiety prone. It can do all kinds of things. And so I changed the wording from networking, and I talk about building relationships and the importance of building relationships. And so I think that as we look at our own professions, as I look at my own life over this 20-something year span of being in higher education and careers, and professional development is at the heart of everything that we do. Building these relationships with individuals is at the heart of what we do. And so that I think is one of those areas that when we speak to it, it's something that we're living. And just like you and I, we're involved in so many different organizations, and it really does speak to that. And I can call on people if I need a student to have a conversation with an expert in the area that I'm not an expert in. We have that network of individuals that we can contact.
I love that. I was about to say the thing that resonates to me about professional development is the keywords develop, is that like you're never settled, like you don't know everything, and you're always learning. And so, like when I preach, like I do this recently, and I've been slacking a little bit, but I'll be like, yo, man, if you don't know how to do something, look at LinkedIn Learning, right? And I was like, okay, but am I looking at LinkedIn Learning myself? So, back in the day, I did have the thing where it would remind me to at least watch at least like 20 minutes a week. I need to refresh that, but I was just trying to learn something. So I don't make all my learning public. So it's not like I just want to do LinkedIn Learning certificates to stun on people. I was watching random videos like how to interview well. I was like, I'm not actually interviewing right now. You know what I'm saying? Like I was watching one. It was like, what was the most random topic? It was like the most random topic. It was like, has nothing to do with me. Like how to have an etiquette dinner. Well, I think my wife thinks I need to know that. But it was like professional, like how to write a professional memo. I was like, I don't know. I don't even necessarily write memos. So it was like really actively seeking the part that I want to develop, and then like really continuously learn. And so I like that. I like that growth and development. I like that word, and it's related to your career. So I think about other things where you find gaps in, public speaking, Toastmasters.
No.
I'm trying to think of another one. Something like, Rotary Club for volunteering. Like find things as an adult and you continuously learn and develop, which is applicable to your career. Because you can learn things for fun too, like hobbies and stuff, but also take time to like learn career stuff.
Well, and I think that you really have discussed the element of what we're talking about, which is we always share specific things with our students. I mean, when we're always talking about LinkedIn Learning, or Coursera's got free training, or HubSpot or Tableau, they all have all these free trainings, and we're saying to our students, take advantage of this. This is free. It's incumbent upon us to always try to also do some of that. And again, I particularly enjoy when a lot of these organizations develop these certificate or these short-term courses that are free. Look at the University of South Florida when they did that diversity and equity and inclusion course for like 8 weeks, and it was completely free and subsidized by some national company. So shout out to that national company. I can't remember their name, but there were I think when I took it, there were 115,000 people taking the course. So those are the types of things that, just like we say to our students, like, here, you got to take advantage of this. Is free. It's not going to cost you anything but some time. It's good for us to also be able to take advantage of that. And really, I mean, when it's free and you're picking up a certificate or another skill set, or you're learning, why not?
Why not? I love that. I love the why not. And also shout out to that South Florida. I actually registered and didn't finish yet. So Junior, you're putting me on spotlight of things I need to finish. And it was crazy because I was looking at my news feed, and it was literally like everyone and their mama was getting, I completed. I was like, where is this thing at? I had to Google it. So, it's visible. Like people, students, I would say this, and just in general, for me, what resonated me as a learner or someone is that when I look at someone and they tell me advice, now, do they have to be perfect at it? No. But when I see someone like actually tries it or had lived it previously, I buy into it better. So if I was like, yo, do this Coursera course, and I looked on your LinkedIn and that Coursera course was there, I'm like, okay, he's really vouching for it. I think I'll take his word for it. So in regards, if we're going to teach our students about professional development, are we enacting that and also making it visible, and also saying, like, I think it also shows the students, like, I don't know everything. I have to learn too. So I love that. So what's the second one?
So the second one is communication, and the breakdown for that really is clearly and effectively exchange information, ideas, facts, and perspectives with people inside and outside of an organization. So again, I mean, it really does speak, and it's going to be a theme all night. these competencies really do speak to the things that we live every day. Because again, I look at it as the term I think that I've been seeing, and I really do enjoy this, is essential in human skills. I mean, these are the things that the competencies bring about. And so communication is one that in our everyday lives, I mean, we're communicating with supervisors, especially during COVID. Communication has never been more important than being able to effectively communicate with our team and our teammates, being able to communicate, like I said, with our VPs, our university president, and not just in that, in everyday life, communicating with your families, communicating with friends and people that you know. So I think that being able to express those ideas, being able to express them clearly, being able to back those ideas up and share facts and perspectives, I think are important. So we live that, and that's what we want to share with our students. Because I think that one thing that I would say about students is that a lot of times that's the one area they're hesitant to really share. Some students don't want to communicate, don't want to talk about themselves. And it's really trying to get them to come out of the shell and say, like, hey, here's why I'm, skilled in this area. Here's why I'm good. I would be good for this opportunity. So communication, 100%.
Do you say that you're good at it and you hit the peak of communication, or what are you doing to get better for yourself? Because I can share that, like, everyone sees me, Philip Wilkerson. I feel like I'm a pretty good communicator, but that iceberg, the iceberg was that I put a lot of work in it because there wasn't I wasn't always the best communicator, and not to say I was shy, and not, let me phrase it. I wasn't shy. I always talked all the time in class. That wasn't the issue. It wasn't volume or quantity, right? They were getting my work, but like, I realized over time, like, wow, I need to be sharper. So I went, I would say it again, Toastmasters. I realized, hey, I've always, I've struggled with emails. People say, I was, too many typos and stuff. So I was like, well, you know what? Let me slow down and use Grammarly. And I did look at LinkedIn Learning about email etiquette and salutations and all that stuff. And sometimes when it's very informal with you, I'm just texting, I'm emailing like my boys, you know what I'm saying? But
yeah.
I definitely have slowed down. Like, yo, who's the audience? And I had to really develop that skill of communication, both to articulate myself out loud, but as well, even this podcast, I wanted to be a better communicator. So yeah, I found that even if I felt like I was good, I wanted to invest in it. What about yourself?
I don't think it ever stops. I think that being able to work on this, purposely slowing down, and that's one of the things that I share with students, because we always talk about, or our conversations tend to stem around all the extras that people have in their speech. Like when you're looking at people saying like, and really talking about ways to slow down your speech, stop your train of thought so that you don't say an but I'll say this. I'll give it, because I think it's a continual learning process, being able to communicate. And I'll give a shout out to my old supervisor, who just retired a couple of years ago. And I remember, and you were just talking about that, how to write emails, how to write correspondences. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that I learned was that she was very, very tough on me. Like, if I would write something, she would say, like, let me take a look at it. She goes, wow, this is not good. Repair it. If I would have a conversation or share something in an email, she goes, yeah, this really is not, you're not sending this out. We're going to fix this. And I started to learn ways that I could better, effectively, more communicate. And I'll just give you one example, which is always funny. So a lot of times when people talk about the cost of something and they're saying, like, oh, I paid for that, you'll always hear people say in meetings, like, oh, we ate that cost. And so what I learned from my supervisor was, like, because I said that in a meeting one time, and I think it was in front of a couple of VPs, and I said, oh, no, we ate the cost on that. And she looked at me after, she goes, you sounded ridiculous when you said that. And she goes, why don't you try saying we subsidized the cost on that, which is much, much different than we ate the cost. And so I think what I learned from her is that choosing words very carefully, choosing wisely, and really being able to effectively get your message out there so people understand it is important.
I love it. I mean, honestly, I probably got that too. And it's also one of the things I learned early on in regards to Toastmasters. I had a mentor, and she said, wow, your speech was really good, but I don't know if it really resonated with the audience. So read the room. And so I, probably in that same scenario, right? If you were with me and your boys and all that, and you said, eat the cost. Okay. But like, I was like, and I don't want to go into this deep dive about code switching or whatever, but it's still a part of communication, is the audience, knowing how to convey it to that audience. and like sounding sharp. And I realized that early on, that communication is a skill, and it's sharp, and it's very well crafted. People don't just say things just to say things. They say it with a purpose. And like
Absolutely.
and when you get like really good at, or when you get better at communication, you realize you open a lot more doors. People are like, oh, they won't just glance through it. They're like, they'll give you more time. I love that.
Absolutely.
Dang, shout out to that. Well, I'm still gonna say we ate the cost in all the rooms. Whatever. I'll go ahead and we ate it. All right, what's the next one?
I'll tell you, I got scolded for that. So
Yeah,
I learned. But the next one is critical thinking. And critical thinking is identify and respond to needs based upon an understanding of situational context and logical analysis of relevant information. So we were almost just talking about this in the context of communication, but when you look at our profession and being able to critically think and make these decisions and responding to all types of situations, and just like you said, and you're going to have different students that come into your office that have different backgrounds, different needs, and you're going to have to critically think about how to advise, how to provide guidance, how to counsel in the appropriate way. There may be tough love involved. There may be, you might have to get real with a student and say like, look, you're talking about all these aspirations, but you're not delivering on any of those. And so I think critical thinking is something that we do every day. When our supervisors hand us projects, we have to critically think about how we're going to deliver the information, whether it be student learning outcomes or something completely different, whether it's data. So again, every day, this is something it's 100% applicable to our daily lives. We're critically thinking all the time for our families. We're critically thinking for our friends, the decisions we make on a day in and day out basis.
I love it. And I think the way that you heard the word data and data, I don't know how you say it, tomato, but
potato.
potato. But I was thinking about the main thing is, like you said, at learning outcomes and metrics. I mean, I literally hate math. I ain't gonna joke. I ain't lying with you, but it runs the world, man. Like, if data and being able to synthesize it, man, I'm telling you, you get more when you say measurable outcomes. I realized that, like, not like numbers, like I did this engagement and this is how many people viewed it. You know what I'm saying? This is how many students came, and can we get another metrics besides attendance? And then you got to like think about it critically. What is another metrics of success to measure outcome rather than just straight attendance? So critical thinking is crazy. And I think the one thing that really resonated about what you just said about making the good decisions and critically thinking is that, I am, like, I just went on an Instagram live. I'm impulsive. That's what I am. And so shout out to my wife, my family, whatever. I slow down a little bit. I ain't slow down a lot, but really think through things. And when I say critically think through things, like, I think we're at a scenario where I think even me thinking like, I'm not going to overthink. I still got to make moves. I'm a guy that makes moves, but at least I need to have option one, option two, and kind of tying into that critical thinking that you just said is at least give options. Like, if I were to do this, if I were to do this, I'm still making a decision. We got to make moves. So that's my only advice for critical thinkers is that, like, align yourself with a mover and shaker, because like I hate being still. So, but I do need to slow down and at least give myself, what is the optics? Oh, you can't just do that because it don't look good. And think about it like rush decisions. Think about it a little bit, but still also do not be a victim of paralysis by analysis. You feel me? So I thought that was always, a thing. Like, I'm finding my happy medium, but we got to make moves. But I think critical thinking is great. And when you have a student that can take you through a problem, like, what was the problem, how you addressed it, what was the outcome? I mean, that's a great skill to have because you're going to use it for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
That was the next one. I love this, man. This is great. I feel like we're dropping mad gems out of nowhere.
Absolutely.
And we just make this up. Listeners, me and Junior, most times I sometimes send out questions. With Junior, I knew that he was a rock star. We could just come on here and just vibe, and he was going to drop gems because now I know, like, that was his story about eating it up. I'm literally going to just say that I'm just going to say that forever now. I'm just going to say it forever.
So we just covered communication. Now I'm going to go a little bit out of order because I think this one is important. I probably should have started with it, but equity and inclusion, which is the newest competency.
Yeah.
And so demonstrating awareness, attitude, knowledge, skills required to equitably engage and include people from different local and global cultures. And I'll finish the rest because I think it's important. Engaging in anti-racist practices that actively challenge the system, structures, policies of racism. And this is what I can say that we live each and every day. At least I know that I live each and every day as a person of color, 2 as a first generation college student, and I think 3 being a small subset group on our campus, and being one of very few Latinx individuals on our campus. I think that's one of the things that we live every day and represent our offices. So I think that being able to think about equity and inclusion from the lens of making sure that we're looking at our hiring practices, that we're looking at our enrollment practices, that we're looking at students from different areas. Because one of the things that I think is never gets mentioned. So we always talk about, and I'll say this is just a quick shout out to this because I read an article and I thought it was very, very insightful. But a lot of times we talk about recruiting students from the inner cities, recruiting populations that are not necessarily prevalent on our campus. And some campuses do have much larger than others, but by and all they don't. But I think there's also, when you talk about first generation poor students, you always got to think about also rural students that live in those communities that are in the middle of nowhere, that have no access, they have no equity, they have no inclusion as well. So the reason I like this equity and inclusion competency is because it encompasses everyone, but it encompasses what it does is it challenges the system to look at ways where we've been shortfalls for years, from every perspective, and even in our own lives, looking at the ways that where we go, who we spend our time with, are we being inclusive of people? Are we giving people opportunities for whatever it might be?
I'm glad you jumped to that, man, because honestly, that's still. I'll be totally transparent. I love that they included it. I love that there's this whole world of attention on it. I love that there's these certificates on it. But let's see where it's at in 5 years, and that's real, because I don't know. Sometimes I just, and I say positive filter. So I'm gonna put a positive spin on it later. But I get a little jaded in the sense that, is this just a wave because it's now? Is it just a wave because of the pandemic and the whole world is seeing a lot of oppressive stuff highlighted on their face? These systems, as you said, these issues have been around. This could have been a competency since the first one they developed. You feel me?
Absolutely.
And so I am wholeheartedly glad that it's in there. I wholeheartedly think it should stay there, obviously, but I really want to see systemic change where it's like this is normal. And I'm thinking about the part about inclusion, and you talk about bringing certain communities to a campus. And I thought about this, right? Yay, let's celebrate. We got Black students. Yay, let's celebrate. We got Latinx students. But what good is celebrating that they're there if they don't want to be there and they don't feel like they belong there? Absolutely. Like, we did them a huge disservice. Probably just gonna give them debt. Probably give them 4 years of mental exhaustion and trauma, and they're not gonna have a fun time. They're not gonna enjoy college. And what's the point of that? Like, let's bring them to an environment and then not support them. That sounds terrible. Like, in my mind, you want to bring them there, include them, have a sense of belonging, encourage them, and then they go out in the world and they feel good about what they're doing, and they're going to probably be more prepared for work. So I be thinking about that all the time. Like, I still, one time I wrote an article about being the only Black man in a room, like in certain rooms. But I was like, but at the end of the day, sometimes that feeling of being the only has gotten lessened when I feel like even if I am the only, I still belong.
Absolutely.
It's worse if you're the only and you have no voice. Absolutely. Right? Or if you're the only and we got you here and we're just gonna hit you with microaggressions all day and just kind of like, what's that? Death by 1,000 pricks, right? That's not a good vibe, right? That's torture. That's torture. True.
But it's crazy.
But if you belong there, think about it. You belong there. You bring someone from that inner city. You bring someone from a rural area, but you make them belong. They will thrive. They will do well.
Absolutely.
So I love
And,
that.
and
I love that
and
competency.
I'll say this, and shout out to my friend Alan Acasa, who works over at Northeastern University. And one of his things that he had put out one time, because he had worked on the employer side, and he's also now in back to higher ed again. And he said, it's not enough to just put these diversity statements on your websites. It's not enough to put, this is what we believe in. The key thing, which is the point that you were making, is we have to build campuses and build the systems and put them in place to make students feel welcome, so that they're engaged, that we have their active voice and their active participation. And I'll say this, at least in my area, in the area where we live, shout out to the 2 community colleges that are in our backyard, or 4 community colleges. They build systems and they have these support systems in place that really do take good care of our students of color. They do take care of these communities of students that are first generation. And students will share that we want to find that type of environment when we move on to a 4-year institution. So again, awesome to have this as a competency, but I think it's going to take campuses, not just the word of mouth and saying it, but they're going to have to live it.
And I was also, I'm gonna do my last thing too about my focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So at bare minimum, if you only think about bottom dollar, it's worth it, because guess what? You're going to retain people, they're going to work harder, and they're going to feel included. And then people of diverse backgrounds will be your biggest, and I don't want to say it in a weird way, but marketing tool, right? Like, you know, like you don't know how many times, and this is just, you know, just anecdotal, where people will reach out to me and say, hey, Phil, what do you think, you know, what's it like to work at Mason as a Black person? And like, you know, and I have to, you know, I'm not saying I'm the voice of all Black Mason, but like, I'm not, but you know, I don't take that responsibility. But you will be able, if you have someone that advocates and says, you know what, I understand these are the circumstances. I'm the only certain spaces, but I do still feel valued here. You will get diverse people. It's a pipeline. It's word of mouth, and then it creates this. And then my last point about this is happy students become employed people, and employed people become alumni, and alumni donate money. It might drop. So
That's the life cycle. You hit the life cycle right there.
Yeah, so you better make them feel included, or they're gonna blast you online.
Absolutely.
So what's the next one? I love that.
So the next one is leadership, and so recognize and capitalize on personal team strength to achieve organizational goals. And I'll definitely say leadership. That's applicable in everyday life. And I think as I've grown as an individual, as I've grown as a professional, I've always looked for key leadership roles. And it doesn't have to be those presidential roles in an organization. It can be volunteering in your local community. It can be serving on a committee for any organization. It's taking those active roles that are volunteer and being able to give back. It's being able to impact, to make a change. So again, the leadership for our students is something that we always talk about on our own campuses. Hey, join X, Y, and Z club. If you're a particular academic major, why are you not doing this? I always say this to the students that they're English majors and, oh, I like to write. Well, why are you not a part of our campus online newspaper? Oh, I love to talk. I want to do radio stuff. Then why are you not participating in our radio station? So that's just one small facet of leadership. But I think that if students see us talking about it as we share and meet with students and share our LinkedIn profiles and talk about the things that we're getting involved in, I think it's only natural. But the one thing that I do say to students, it's not to try and do 22 things at once. I've seen with that has not worked for some students. We had a student leader one time that went on academic probation and had to stop leading one of his clubs because he was more about the club than he was about his academics. And so you can't do that. But you want to find also organizations on your campus that you feel good about. They're organizations where you can contribute and make an impact, and not just becoming a member, but actively giving back to that group. And I think that's how you slowly start to build some of this leadership characteristics. Eastern ACE, perfect example, which you did participate in. We have the board shadowing program. So people that want to be future leaders to see what that was. And I've had some conversations with people that have gone on, they're super excited because now they can see like, hey, I can do this. This is something that I would be good at. So leadership is key.
Okay, so I'm not going to talk about me. I got 2 questions follow-up for you about leadership.
Go ahead.
Okay, one, you are in a higher position than me as a director, right? but you made still time to invest in your leadership. How did you prioritize your 9 to 5 leadership and make sure that you're still like you're not like the adult version of that student on probation? Like how do you balance real 9 to 5 leadership with voluntary leadership?
So I think for me is I look for organizations, or I look for things that I'm going to get involved in. One, that I believe in. Two, where I feel that I can make an impact. My whole thing has always been about service, and I'll say that to this day. If anybody asks me my leadership style, one, it's collaborative, but two, it's servant leadership, and I believe in giving back. So I never have a problem with talking to people about certain professions. But I think the other thing is I'm just one person. Yeah. And I know, and so you have to understand your time management as well. What are your other priorities? Do you have children? Is there a balance in life? Are you going to graduate school? Because good leaders that understand this stuff don't burn themselves out either. That's the other piece, because you'll see people, and I'll just use one example, Eastern ACE. And so that organization, we've had leaders where then all of a sudden they take a step back because they're going to graduate school to either work on a doctoral degree or something else. And you don't see them for 2 or 3 years while they're prioritizing graduate school. And then all of a sudden, once they're done, then you see them come back and get reinvigorated and re-energized within the organization. Yeah. So I think it's really understanding your own time management and what your priorities in life are, and then figuring out a way to balance it, because you can't be the president of 17 organizations, even if you want to be. You can't be involved in 22. And like I said, I don't know why I always use 22, but 22 different committees, and think that you're going to be effective in any one of them. So
yeah, no, that's real, because and this is another form of transparency, is that as I became a budding leader, I didn't really grow up thinking I was a leader or really believing in individual leadership. Like it's me. Like I was like, someone said, "Phil, you're a leader." I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" Like I'm just doing something, right? I mean, literally, no joke. And then as I started to believe in myself and being a leader and that manifestation of it, I started getting more opportunities. And then on the opposite end, though, I was getting a leadership drunk. You feel me? Like, wow, this one say, I can't say no to him. This person approached me. I can't say no to them. This is the first time people thought I was a leader. This feels really good, ego feeling. And I don't think doing too much of leadership stuff during a pandemic is a good idea. Feel me? Like, and so that's why I asked you, like, I still got normal priorities of, my wife, my kids, 9 to 5. And then adding on these additional leadership opportunities. But with this weird thing, I don't want to let it go, because sometimes I don't want to let go of these external leadership things, because one, I see the benefit of it. Like, wow, not just resume wise, like I'm learning a new skill. I've never done this before. So I need to finish this, whatever role out. Like, I was a chaplain of Alpha. Like, I God bless you. I don't know. I've never been a chaplain before, but I was writing emails. It made me write emails to the chapter. I had to do funeral services. So it taught me about preparing and work. I got a counseling degree, but being very transparent about grief and all these things. And so I was like, I can't turn that down, when someone asked me to be chaplain. But they asked me again, to be the chaplain again for another term for 2 years. And I said, no, thank you. Because I had other aspirations. So it felt bad, because I thought I was getting, by the time I got to 2 years, I thought I was actually good at it. Right. Like, so I asked you that question about bandwidth. And then I think my second question to you is like, how do you work with someone? We're not talking about students now, but how do you work with someone that still thinks of leadership as this Wizard of Oz beyond the veil? And I can talk about myself. Like, I think I was a member of Eastern ACE, like in 2014, and took a gap and came back. And I remember the first conference. I don't think you remember me, but I remember seeing you and being on stage. And I was just a member, and I was like, wow, that's pretty crazy. This dude's on stage, and they all know each other. But I could never do that, right? I could never do that. And that was in Reston. And I was like, I never could do that. And look at me, like 4 years now. I was like, yeah, I think it's doable. I can do it. So how do you bring someone through that? Because it is, I don't know. I wish I could go back in the time machine and say, like, tell myself to be a little bit more confident or try something. But I did try eventually, and it got, it was happy. I dipped my feet in. But how do you talk to someone like that had the behind the veil feeling, like, in regards to leadership?
So that's actually a great question, because I have lived that. I 100% have lived that, and I've shared this with other people. But one of the things is, with any leadership position, it really is demystifying what the person is doing. And so I think that's important. A lot of times people say, like, oh, this leader, and like, what is it that you're actually doing? And then when you start to talk people through that process, like, oh, that's manageable. Okay, that's oh, I thought it was something else, and it's not. And so it's providing people with the right information.
Yeah.
But also what goes into that is really figuring out what the person that you're talking to is, what is the aspiration. So it's almost like you're career advising a professional as well, to say, where is it that you want, where is it that you want to be, what is it that you want to do. And then through conversations, through getting to know people, you start to say, like, look, you really have some great characteristics that would make for an excellent board member, that would make for an excellent vice president, or make for an excellent president. And I think it's really having that conversation with people, because we always get asked those questions, like, what does it take to be on the board? What do I need? What types of skills? And we start talking about all the key things. You've got to be open to collaborate. You've got to be able to be organized. You've got to be able to manage your time well. You've got to be responsive, which are all skill sets that most professionals, if not all, are really developing in the course of their job. I mean, you're communicating with everyone every day. You're making decisions. You're critically thinking. So everyone has that capacity for leadership. It's just a question of whether you want to be in a leadership role or not, based on, again, what we talked about earlier, which is, what is your life circumstance? What are your situations? Do you have the time? Do you have other interests? I mean, is it going to graduate school? Do you want to get a certificate of some sort? But everyone does have that capacity. And for me, I think it was, I was tapped. Somebody asked me and said, like, hey, we think you'd be good for this. Have you thought about it? And I said, absolutely not. No, I want no part of that. That's what I said. I want no part of that. When they asked me for the Eastern Association of Colleges and Employers, they asked me to be the board, the treasurer, and I had no interest. And so in talking through the process and talking about, hey, there's support. And that's the thing. Most of these organizations, you're never going to be alone. There's going to be support. I think the same thing happened with me with the Massachusetts Educational Recruiting Consortium, which I have been president now for, I think, a little over 8 years. And when I had been involved with that organization for at least 20, and seeing people and seeing what they were doing. And a lot of times it's also being able to look at yourself and see yourself in that place. And I remember when my supervisor in the Career Center was getting ready to as I was coming up, I'd have all these conversations, and she continued to give me more responsibility. And I'm like, I know that I can do what she can do. And I started to see myself in that role. Yeah. And so I think a lot of that too is also, what is it that you say? Speaking to your truth, or saying it out loud so that you start to believe it. Yeah. That's part of the other piece.
I love that, demystifying. We're going to use that. I mean, I think, I can go on. We could probably talk about demystification of leadership, whole segment. This could be a whole podcast, but I think that's one of the deepest things I learned too, is like going on a board meeting, like any board meeting, or going to like these big meetings at the big table, at the big dogs. And you're like, wow, like they're just keeping meeting minutes. They're just taking turns talking. We did this in preschool. You feel me? Like, I mean, it's more organized. Oh man, you got to stand up and say something. I had to do that in class presentations, so that demystification really works. I mean, it's higher level, more pressure. Yeah. You got to, like I said, we got to be more sharp with our communication. But at the end of the day, I was like, wow, like this is not as crazy as I thought it was. Like as like I'm in this room, I've been in a room with the provost, and I was like, they're just talking slower.
They're human beings. That's the thing people forget, Phil. They're human beings, and so I mean that's the one element that people forget, and it's a lot of times if you equate that to our students. One of the things that I started to do this past year in presentations was I really started to talk about my authentic self, because a lot of times students see us and they're like, oh, there's Phil from the Career Center, and he's this professional, this high level position, and I can't talk to him. I'm scared. I'm anxious. And so I started saying in presentations to them, look, I'm not a robot. I'm a human being just like all of you. And here's my authentic self. Here's a little bit about me. So I talk about my college football team that I like. I talk about being a dad. I talk about being a husband. I talk about all the things that I think will demonstrate to our students that, like, oh, when Junior Delgado, he is the director of the Career Center, but he's also a person who lives a life outside here. Because I said, I don't breathe and live and sleep career services. I'm still a human being with other interests outside of the field.
I love that. And also, I like the aspect that you just said too, is like, we are human beings. And then like, I don't know, man, when you really connect with people, you realize that you could do just as much. All right, man, we could have gone on the whole time. That leadership one was a big one. Oh, what's the next one we got here?
So professionalism. So knowing work environments differ greatly, understand and demonstrate effective work habits, and act in the interest of the larger community and workplace. So I think, again, this one has 22 different arms to it. Again, see, I like that number for whatever reason. I might have to play 2222 something and see.
Yeah, you had to. 22. You got 22-inch rims on your car?
No, but I should.
You rolling on 22s?
Too funny. But I think I think with professionalism, that's something that we have to look at every day. It's something that we model for our students, and professionalism is going to look different for everyone.
Please, yes, speak to that, because for the longest time, and this is the podcast, I thought professionalism was whiteness, and what I mean by that, professionalism is talking proper English, the King's English. Professionalism was wearing a suit. Professionalism was this, and I don't know. I was like, man, still know, read the room, but is professionalism so steeped in Eurocentric thinking that like other people can't be professional? Like if you got different kind of hair and they go say your hair is unprofessional. No, that's I don't think that should be linked to professionalism, right? Or you got a lot of tattoos. How's I was thinking about this the other day. How's this guy, if this dude is a surgeon, a nationally known surgeon, and I got a problem and I need him to do surgery on me, and he's like covered in tattoos, you think I'm gonna be like, hold up, sir, you got too many tattoos to do an operation on me? I'm like, no, I need help, so like, so can we speak to this, like, what was the definition of professionalism again? Did it really speak to that? Like, what is, I don't know. Does it really speak to wear a suit and tie and all that?
Yeah. So I think it really does break down to knowing what work environments differ greatly, understand and demonstrate effective work habits, and act in the interest of the larger community and workplace. So you're 100% correct in what you've mentioned, which for many, who knows, hundreds and hundreds of years, that was, you could go back to many of the first centuries, and Roman soldiers were considered professional. So you look at all these different things throughout history and what professionalism is, and yes, it is rooted in that. And I think that where we have come from, and maybe COVID has accelerated this, that there is less of an onus on, and we started to see a little bit of it, maybe a lot of it before COVID. Dress was on the way out, because you got to think of the other, we have gender neutrality now. So there's no such thing as in colleges and universities. We've been changing a lot of our definitions of how to dress, what dress for success is, what dress professionally is.
Yes.
And so when we talk about these things, the same thing with the hair, I don't have that problem, so I've never had to deal with that. But I would say that being professional is going to be very different for each person. So I'll give you an example. I remember working at a specific university prior to Wesley, so I'm going way, way back. And there was a position that was open, and it was for facilities and operations. And so they were looking for a director to lead facilities and operations. And so they had 3 candidates that came in. 2 candidates came in fully dressed up in suits. And then 1 candidate showed up, and he was wearing a nice pair of jeans with a button up. And that was it. And he talked them through and really talked about his skill sets and everything else. And out of all 3 people, he got the position. And so in having this conversation with the HR director, I'm like, I would have thought you would have gone in the other direction. They're like, no. And they said, well, do you really think that this director of facilities and operations is going to, when they come into work, they're going to be wearing a suit and tie to go use a chainsaw, to go use whatever it is to operate equipment? So professionalism has a very different meaning. And like I said, and dress is just one aspect of it. Culturally, how people speak, the foods that we eat, everything is very different. And so what one person may consider professional, another person will not consider professional. And so I think it's looking at your work environment and seeing, again, there are certain elements of what being a professional can be. And that, again, you don't want to come into your workplace and swear 24/7. There's certain things. You don't want to come to the work environment when you send out emails, you're sending out your emails like you're texting a friend. Yeah. So those are key elements. This, like I said, this topic is just, it goes in a lot of different directions, because this topic could also be about your own personal brand and what that personal brand is.
Yeah.
what it isn't. And if you look at LinkedIn nowadays, one of the things that I'm seeing is people that are really showing their authentic self, but they're still professional. Their
Yeah.
pictures are now them fishing and they're holding up a fish. I use one example of one of our alums from West Hill State one time on LinkedIn. I was about to contact them and say, like, you have to check yourself here. What is going on with this picture? It was him standing there with no shirt on, and it is a LinkedIn photo. But then when I read the caption, I'm like, oh, the student was a personal fitness trainer. And so the message was, if you want to look like this, contact me to work with me. So, but if you took it out of context and just saw an individual with no shirt on the site, you'd be like, this is unprofessional. So
I love that. Yeah, I love that. And one of the things I think that spoke to me, and we could probably go like you said, but the one thing was that the habits and culture of the organization, which I believe is fluid and set the tone. And so one thing I've always appreciated by our boss Saskia is sometimes, obviously we got standards, but she's also like, it's almost like democratic. Like, what are the norms that we set, and kind of throw it to the group. So we kind of set our own norms. Like, like in regards to professionalism, when you go into our main lunchroom, you clean up after yourself and clean the table. Yeah. And like everyone, literally, previous COVID, like it was almost like you did it because you didn't, that was a professional norm, is that you get the like Lysol wipe and wipe off your desk or where you ate in our common lunchroom. Or I think in regards to habits and culture, right? Like, I guess, being late or being on time. Now, mind you, being late and on time, it's not, that person is rude, but it's also the habit of the office. It's like, we got things to do. And if you're late, it's a disruption. Absolutely. And so you don't want to be a negative disruption. Like, and we even had to come to terms. Sometimes we do a little thing like revise the office. Like, what you have, I think like new proposal month. And we have rechanged our norms. Like, one norm is, can we wear jeans more often? And so I think professionalism, I like the word that it had in the definition, which was habits of the culture, and not purposely disrupting that. And I think I think it could be fluid. Like, I don't think that professionalism, it should be steeped in the same old as always, but it should, as you said, kind of fit the audience, fit the brand of the organization, fit the culture, and be a good look. And so I like that. So I think when we think about professionalism, I think it's like when I ever become a leader someday, is more so like getting buy-in of habits. What are the habits that we as a culture are going to buy in together? Because think about basketball coaches, man. Like, I think like champions. I can't think of like a direct one that Wooden did, but like over time, players would not be late. Not because they're going to get reprimanded by the coaches. They were going to get reprimanded by each other, because that was the level of professionalism. We held our own to a standard together. Absolutely. Accountability. So I think that's the difference.
Absolutely.
All right, what's the next one? We ripping through.
Yeah, teamwork. This is an easy one. This is an easy one. Build and maintain collaborative relationships to work effectively towards common goals while appreciating diverse viewpoints and shared responsibilities. And again, the workplace now is so different, not only from the perspective of multiple generations, but there's everything. There's people of color that I mean, the offices are so diverse in different places, different industries. So I think with teamwork, we live that every day. We have to work as part of a team. We're moving. We have a mission. And so and for any organization, it's about mission when you're talking about the workforce, but it's the same thing as when you talk about families or your own personal life. You have to work as a team with whoever that might be, whether it's a family member, whether it's an aunt, a cousin, an uncle, whatever it is. It's always about collaborating. It's always about teamwork, and the teamwork's going to depend on what the common goal is.
I think the main thing that I've learned over time in regards to teamwork is almost as sport related as it could be. Is find your lane and do what you do well, and not have to be the jack of all trades, and make yourself the Avengers. Find people in their own lane and combine. So I obviously, you want to have a baseline of different skills, but know your lane. So like for me, public speaking, being out there, very visible, I need my right hands, where my more quiet analytical thinkers, the people that slow me down. But we complement each other, because then sometimes my quiet analytical friends don't make no moves. I'm like, let's do it. Let's make moves. And they give me some good processes. So I definitely have really, really bought into the strengths-based model of teamwork, like everyone knowing their strengths, and that it takes, when people maximize their individual strengths, you elevate and really don't task people in regards to teamwork. Don't overbeat people in the head with what they suck at and think that's going to make them get better. Like, compliment them with someone and make alliances. That really works well everywhere. You see it everywhere.
Absolutely.
So don't ask me to do high level math. You know what I'm
saying? Well, I think you're saying it, which is very true. It's you've got to look at different strengths of each person, and with any team in any environment, whether you're working in manufacturing, whether you're working in healthcare, education, that you're always working as part of a team. You're just going to be, even if you're an accountant who's sitting in the back working by yourself, you're still working as part of a team for a firm, for an organization, for families, whatever it might be. So teamwork is always going to be so important.
Yeah, I love that. All right, dream team. What's the next one?
All right, and I think we're at the last one, which is...
All right, there we go. We hit time. Look at us. We're hitting our time.
We're at great time. So technology. So understand and leverage technology ethically to enhance efficiencies, complete tasks, and accomplish goals. And I think we as individuals who work on college campuses, this is the one thing. Where technology is changing at a rapid pace, but we're always reviewing new platforms. We're looking at platforms. And so I always want to refer platforms to students or alums that we're specifically using. So when you talk about, for us, we use Handshake, it's really, here's why you use Handshake, here's how to navigate it. I talk a lot about LinkedIn, especially LinkedIn and building those relationships. But it goes even further than that. We have to look at the technologies in our systems are, if you have a Salesforce campus, if you have a Salesforce, if you're using Banner, whatever it is that you're using, you have to understand it as a worker. I think the one that I laugh a little bit sometimes when I still see everybody writing down Microsoft Office programs. Okay, well that's like a standard. That is a standard that hopefully most people at least know how to navigate, use, understand. I hope. But it isn't that even if you list it on a resume, it's not like that's the key thing that's going to sell people on. So you really want to, when it comes to technology, it's really trying to understand everything that's out there and how you can make your processes better. You've got all these new platforms, everything from the interview streams of the world to the standouts of the world that are used for interviewing or mock interviewing practices. So for students and the way that it applies, the one thing that I definitely will say is that there can never be an assumption made. Because I've had students say this to me, people assume that just because we're a younger generation that we all know technology or we all like technology, because as many students have said to me, like, look, I hate computers. I hate social media. So, but it's going to be a part of every working world. If you're a police officer, you're using computer systems and technology to input everything in reports. If you're working in healthcare or nursing, you're writing reports. If you're a writer for whatever it might be, for a newspaper, for a magazine, for an editorial, you're going to be using technology. So it's important to understand that technology can be overwhelming, but it also makes our jobs and it makes for any industry effectiveness. It can make life a little bit easier as well.
I was about to say, in regards to technology, is don't find it so boring. Have fun with it. I'll be honest. Shout out to this podcast, man. I never would have thought I would have learned audio editing or Audacity or StreamYard that we're using right now. All these platforms, because I didn't go at it from a nerdy, let me learn technology. I went at it from I want to have fun, and then I had to learn it to be better at having fun. Like this for me is very fun. This is so not always your pursuit of technology has to be like, oh, I got to be a coder or some kind of job way, and honestly, I get to thrive. I meet all the creative students. So you best believe I've gotten better. I remember, and I joke with people, they gave me when I interviewed for my job, right? They were like, okay, great. Industry advisor, you're going to be working with students and working with alum. here are the two industries that you can choose between: creative industries, media, arts, design, or tech and engineering, like actual tech and engineering. I was like, creative industry, please. Like, and you best believe, like, shout out to all my students I work with. I remember mad times like, wow, that was a really dope video. What did you use? And I was like, I was taking notes from the students. They were putting me on the game. You know what I'm saying? So it was fun. And so I think one thing I would adhere to anyone that is scared or is older, post-college, learning technology, don't go at it from learning technology professionally or being an expert. Like, maybe it's almost as simple as like, you know what? I want to be the PTA president and talk to the moms. I want to find out how to use emails better. So I'm going to use MailChimp and send out nicer emails or whatever, Emma, and, you know, use that. So the purpose was something in your normal day life, and you're using that technology, and it's not scary. Like, you're not coding, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, or I love my kids. I really want to take nice pictures of my kids. So then you get a camera and you say, you know what? I want these pictures to be so clean. And then you learn on your own, which I've seen mad parents do. They learn how to use Photoshop and editing, and they take amazing photos of their kids. So they went around it and they learned the technology through a different lens of fun avenue. Like my cousin did that. My cousin, he bought himself a DSLR camera and he taught himself photography. And so I think that's awesome. You know, people saying getting tech, like, oh, you're good at technology, Philip. You're so good at this. I was like, I mean, honestly, I just wanted to do, like, I didn't want to make YouTube videos, and I don't like TikTok. And so I was like, man, let me figure out how to do this podcast thing. So that's my advice. You know, anyone can learn something creative. Anyone can learn technology. It doesn't have to be full tilt. When we think of technology, you're like building, you know, the next iRobot. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think, and that'll be my next point. When a lot of people, when I see professional organizations and they see the word technology and communication committee, they get scared off because they're thinking they're coding or something. Because we had this preconceived notion that technology is coding. When now I've been on 2 technology committees, one at BASE and one at EACE. It's meaning like managing the social media and the language there, or running a Twitter chat, or making graphics on Canva. Like, it's not full blown. You're not a hacker. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like,
absolutely.
It's not that. So that's my advice.
But I agree.
So overall, okay, this is hard. Do you agree that this was applicable to now? To think the NACE competencies nailed it?
Yes, I do, because I think that they cover and encompass every area. And again, there's also interpretations within each and every one of those that can be expanded. So it's not cut and dry to exactly what each one specifically says. But if you think about all 8 of them, they cover every aspect of our life. So it's not just working, but it's everything that we do. I mean, you can be out and about, going to have drinks, and you're meeting people and communicating and talking, and so you can be out wherever at shopping and still run into somebody and have to communicate. You have to be polite. You have to excuse me, whatever it might be. So yes, do I think they're applicable? I think they are, because they're essential and they're human skills.
I think so too. And then my last thing, and before we wrap up, do you think, I've read a report, you know, earlier that we're trying to build a bridge. Why do you think, from your standpoint, why do we think we have this, I guess, perception of skill gap? Like, you know, like employers want this and students think they have this, but I read a report that like students only have like 60%. You know, they're not matching what the employers say. Why do you think that? Do you think it's really a skill deficiency or a lack of being able to articulate and process that you're already using this all the time?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
So I think that one thing that I do say in presentation students is that they don't always market themselves in the best way, talk about their transferable skills in the best way, because there are many things that they do that they just in their mind sometimes don't believe is relevant, don't believe it's applicable when it really is. The other piece I think is that yes, are there some skill gaps in some areas? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But I think it's also, we have to look at it from a perspective of what is it that employers actually need? what is that job description actually saying? The other one, which I know is becoming a national movement now, and if it isn't, it will continue to be. But it's when entry level jobs are being posted and they're asking people for 3 to 5 or 5+ years of experience.
Yeah.
It's, that to me is just.
That's-
I was
hate that.
working with a young alum today, and we're looking at entry level positions, and like 98% of the postings that we saw and what she's interested in was 3+ years of experience. And then the pay was like 35 grand, $42,000 a year. I mean, it was, and I'm saying to myself, so the fields are so, it's not balanced. It's out of whack. The expectations of what is wanted.
Right.
You can't expect, I'm going to say it this way. You can't expect the person to go 100 miles an hour and give you the world. And then you want 10+ years of experience and you want to pay $40,000 a year.
Yeah.
And
Makes
so
no sense.
it
I
makes
hate
no.
that. It's like a meme. Like it's like a chicken. Like what do you like? How am I gonna get experience when I saw a meme? I gotta find it. I'll send it to you, Junior. It was like this guy was like, so I need experience to get experience. like and he was like this, like it don't make no sense. Like how do I get? Like there's like, what experience do you have? Well, hopefully this one, so I can get experience.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But Phil, it also goes to interest as well. That's the other piece. We have to look at the sectors that are complaining about, or not complaining, but they're sharing that there's a skills gap, or they're sharing that there's a need for employees. And a lot of those sometimes tend to be things that students don't want to do. So when you look at manufacturing is an area where there's a great need, but there's just not enough students that have an interest in going to work at a machine shop, or student that wants to become a sheet metal fabricator, or not enough students that want to become plumbers. So yes, there is, you can call it a skills gap, you can call it an employment gap, whatever you want, but I mean, it's also based on interest.
Yeah. Big fact. All right, so we're going to our last segment of our show, Shot for Shot. You know about it. So you get to ask a question, I get to ask a random question. Oh, you want to go first? I'll go first.
Go first.
All right, so this is it, man. We're new year, so that's my question. What is one thing you are looking forward to in this new year? You're like, man, 2022. That's why you were saying 2022, because it's this year.
Absolutely.
What's something that is going down? I'm manifesting it. It's happening. I'm doing it. It's accomplishing. I'm traveling to it. Whatever. I'm making it happen in 2022. What's one thing?
I think, is this personal or professional?
I've made it so broad. I like manifest it, whatever you want.
I think that one thing that I would say for 2022, I'd like to get to 2 different vacations this summer. I would like to go to 2 very different places this summer, but anything that involves the beach. And so I want to say that and hope that COVID doesn't impact vacations. So I think.
Did you get one of those last year? Did you get at least one beach trip last year?
I did get one, but it was very limited again, and the place was crowded, and so you have to, again, you have to be careful with everything. But I think that would be it. Professionally, I would say, if to give you the other side of it, one of the things is just to get successfully through the semester.
Yeah.
Be healthy, be safe, but just get through the semester and get the students to graduation. And then move from there.
There you go. I think that's everybody. That's a world of work. That's a world of work one. Get me through this season.
Absolutely.
2 trips, man. That's dope. Okay, what's yours for me?
All right, here we go. So my question for you is this: in this coming year, how many different episodes of this podcast do you want to do? But let me go one step further.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Who's the one person that you really want to get on this show that you have not been able to yet get?
Okay. Oh, do I have a realistic person, or let me do a realistic person and then a fantasy person?
Okay.
So fantasy all time. I'm saying this always, every time when someone says, "Who can you interview?" J. Cole. Someday, man, if I was rich and I could just fly there and just get like a 5-minute clip of him, with the microphone. It's J. Cole. He's my favorite artist. I just love his interviews. I just watched this one he did it. It's called Nardwuar. Have you heard of him?
I haven't.
Nardwuar. So I'll send that to you too. Nardwuar is this guy that he just does really funny music interviews with music, artists.
Yeah.
And he literally was like, I think it was 2 years ago, 2019. He was like, J. Cole, can you be on my show? And he said, yeah, I'd love to, but I'm really busy. Have your people get my people. I promise. I won't, I'm not just brushing you off. I'll be on your show. And he made it happen 2 years later. And it was the dopest interview. And they showed that clip of him asking J. Cole to do it. And it was like he was just dropping gems. It was just a great episode. I was like, that's it. Man, someday, if I could be rich, man, or make it happen, I would love to interview J. Cole. Realistically, I don't know. I had Ann Holton. That was pretty dope. Old president of Mason. I had, I have all the people at Easter EACE. Maybe the current president of Alpha. That'd be pretty dope. I had a former past president, and that was pretty dope. They made a current one, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's even realistic either, but that'd be cool. Someone that's a president, and then I can do I love talking to people, the demystification of leadership, and just asking those leaders normal questions. So that'd be it. And then in regards to how many episodes, I don't know how many numbers we'll get. I think this is like 250 something. I want to hit 300. So that means it's 50 episodes this year, which means, man, that's at least once a week. And you know what? There might be a week where I double up and I do 2 in one app. But I want to hit that I want to hit that number 300 and and if COVID was safe, I would love. This is another aspiration I had before COVID. I had it planned out to the T. I was going to do a live broadcast of the episode, but not like this StreamYard live. I mean, legit, get a stage, have an audience, have the mics, engage, have questions, almost like a podium mic where people can walk up and ask a question to the panelists. I had the flyer for it. I legit had it. I had it for something 2020, like March 2020, and COVID jacked it up. And so that will be one of my dreams. Maybe as I get closer to 300, I would love to do a 300 celebratory episode where we awesome. Have that, and then afterwards it'd be drinks. It'd be like a reception or something afterwards.
Yeah.
That'd be
awesome.
One of my dreams. So stupid COVID. I mean, I had the flyer, and then I had to I posted on Instagram. If I scroll through, I probably can still find it. Then I had to post another flyer that said canceled. Oh man, but that'd be fun. Just a live episode, and I got the venue. I got friends that would support. I even had people that were like a local brewery will donate the beer. One of my friends is a chef. He was like, "Yo, I'd actually cook a catered meal for free, awesome. Just because I love what you're doing." And so I'd have food and drinks and music, a DJ. And we'd do the live episode and then just turn it into just a random party. That was a dream.
That would be awesome. That really would be awesome.
That would happen someday. All right. Well, Junior, this has been great. Always love it. 3-time. I think you're almost coming from my record with my one fraternity brother who's been on 5 times. He kind of not forced. He aggressively suggested coming on, and I can't say no because he's my big brother. He brought me into the fraternity. So I said, yeah, of course. So you're almost there. I think he's been on 5 times. You're 3, so whatever. But for the listeners of this show, please share how, shout outs and plugs, any love you want to show, and then how people can follow with you. And we'll call it, land this plane.
Absolutely. So what I want to say is thank you, Phil, for having me on. It's always a pleasure to have these conversations. Anytime we can get up and talk about things that we both enjoy. It's always my pleasure. I want to send out a shout. I'm going to keep this one general tonight, but I want to send a shout out to all the folks that are out there every day working, that are out there every day staying safe, staying healthy, but also helping people, all those people in their professions where they go unnoticed. Mm-hmm. And they're the unsung heroes of keeping our society going through COVID. Shout out to all the healthcare workers that are out there day in and day out, working so hard and losing time with their families because they're keeping us healthy and safe. So shout out to all the people out there that are making a difference every single day.
And then, how people can contact you or get in touch or what you're working on.
Absolutely. So if anybody wants to reach out, please connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with me on Twitter, Instagram. So I'm on all 3 of those different platforms. They can contact me at work at Westfield State. So my email and all that information is on the system as well. And again, always love to talk to individuals, share the story, talk about leadership, talk about ways to help and engage students, and certainly connecting students to employment opportunities, internship opportunities. So that's what I'm about.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Junior. Definitely listen to this episode. I might even just put in the links. I need to work on that. Put the other episodes that you were on so they can listen to all the gems you dropped, and not just this episode, the other episodes. I really appreciate you supporting me, not only in this endeavor, the podcast, but also in regards to leadership and believing in me in regards to my other leadership opportunities that, we talk about offline. But I really appreciate that. And it means a lot. So listeners, if you like this episode, please share it with your family members or friends. Sharing positivity is a movement. If you have any questions for the podcast, the hotline is 571-336-6560. That's 571-336-6560. You can leave a voicemail for the podcast. Sometimes I even upload those voicemails at the beginning of a show to show you some love for dropping voicemails. But this has been a great episode, and we're out. Thank you for listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.